You're listening to The Green Flag with your hosts, Lukas Wacker and Kyle Cushman.
There you have it. The news is official. Probably the biggest week we've had in recent NASCAR memory is finally coming to a close, as the past 48 hours have been a whirlwind of news breaking left and right. Driver movements, the Cup Series, Xfinity, and Truck Series calendars have been released for next season. Lots to get into in today's episode. But first off, I just really want to thank all of you for watching our stuff this past week.
Yeah,
really did really well, and we're really happy with how it all's doing. And thank you for commenting. We really appreciate that. Great to see some engagement on all of our stuff. So can't thank you guys enough. And we're hoping you stick around for the remainder of the season, because it's going to be a fun one as we head to Bristol this upcoming week. We've got lots on deck for the show. Of course, the Kyle Busch breakdown. We'll talk about the Cup Series, Xfinity, and Truck Series calendars to an extent. Not too much to chat about there. Brandon Jones has a new home for next season. Jeremy Clements has his appeal going into Daytona. It's been approved by NASCAR. He's into the playoffs. What does that do for the bubble? Going into Bristol for the regular season finale. And then, of course, we'll have our draft each and every week. Kyle's been smoking me so far, so we'll see if I
don't want to get too excited.
My favorite track. But before we get into all of that, because it is a lot to get into, how are you doing today, Mr. Cushman?
Yeah, doing good. Busy show today. A lot of really interesting topics, of course, to get into, and all of that leading into arguably our favorite race of the year, the Bristol 100%. Night. Like, come on, not Bristol night race. Like, come on. What a week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, you can't beat Bristol. You can't beat Bristol on the regular concrete either. And we're gonna keep on chirping that like forever, and at night especially. You just can't beat Saturday night under the lights at Bristol. Yeah. It's going to be a great round of 16 closer as per usual. But we'll talk about that a little later on in the show. But first off, we got to talk about the big news. Kyle Busch joining RCR in 2023 to drive the number 8 in a multi-year agreement. We kind of knew this almost right after we recorded last week. The reports started coming out from Adam Stern. There's no announcement coming. And then Dale Jr. Leaving a tweet that left me in shambles, basically. But, then it looked like 2311 may have still been an option. But all of those rumors were put to bed yesterday at 10 a.m. at the NASCAR Hall of Fame, as Kyle Busch announced his future plans with Richard Childress by his side, that he's going to RCR next season. So this is arguably the biggest NASCAR free agency move in recent history, maybe even ever. This is a massive move, and it changes the complexion of the sport in a lot of different ways. You lose a Truck Series team with TRD that's moving over to Chevrolet. That's been confirmed. What does it do for the prospect pipeline for Toyota? Where do those drivers go? Who goes over to the Chevrolet KBM team for next season? How many trucks, how many cars are going to be fielded in those two different things? Where does Tyler Reddick end up for next season? Even though that was talked about in the press conference, lots to get into here. But initial thoughts here, Kyle. The move, we talked about it last week. We thought which place would be best for Kyle Busch. You said 2311. He ends up choosing RCR. What do you make of Busch's decision and the outlook for RCR going into 2023 and beyond?
Yeah, it's a fascinating one. For Kyle Busch, for RCR, as you mentioned, for the sport in general, given how much NASCAR talent has come through the Kyle Busch pipeline and how that's going to change. There's a lot of fascinating elements to this story. But for the main part of it is that a championship caliber driver is with a team that hasn't contended for a championship in essentially a decade plus. And so what that means for Richard Childress going forward, what that means for Chevrolet going forward, and what that means for the kind of twilight of Kyle Busch's career and what it means for his career numbers, what records he's able to set, all these kind of things is huge. You can look at the move as maybe Chevrolet is looking to put more onus on Richard Childress and give them a bit more help and things like that. I'm not quite sure we'll see that to a full extent, but we've seen Tyler Reddick win a couple of races this season on road courses, be competitive at other places. Probably could have had 3-4 wins if things had broke right for him this season. So it's not like RCR is completely out to lunch, and that's a team that he's going to, that he's literally going to that 8 car as well. So it's a really, really interesting move for Kyle Busch and a big bet that RCR was the best landing spot for him once Joe Gibbs Racing wasn't an option to return to. It's a team that obviously he's going to have to go into and kind of build back up again. But that's going to be a bit more of a veteran team that he's going into as well. It's not going to be a young team he's going into. He's going into a team basically plugging in directly for a driver there with the 8 team and having somebody else there in Austin Dillon that has been there for a few years, of course. So, just a fascinating move. And it's just so rare that you see a driver of Kyle Busch's quality go to a team that is this kind of unsure of whether they can be a championship level team, and what that means for their performance. How they perform into the future is going to be one of the biggest storylines to watch into next year and into the future.
There's so much to break down with this, and I can't wait to get into it because, whether it's the whole my watch incident that happened at Kansas a decade ago, I mean, it is unfathomable to think that these two could coexist, and I'm excited about it, which I never really thought I was going to feel, not just as a fan of Kyle Busch, but I think even as a neutral, I think you're excited by this move and what it could mean for RCR. If you're a traditionalist fan, if you were a Dale Earnhardt fan, the last time they won a championship was with Dale Earnhardt, 1994. Like, this team has not had that success in the Cup Series division in a long, long time. So this is a big bet by Kyle Busch to think that RCR is on the upswing. I do think we talked about it last week. It's not probably his first choice. If he had all the teams that he could choose from, it's not his first choice, but of the options that were available, his
second or third choice either.
No, probably not either. That's the reality that we find ourselves in with this market and with the contracts that were up and expiring and who had rides open for next season in the charter system that we're going through right now. But if you look at who presented and who he met with, I honestly believe that this probably is his best bet. Now hearing what they had to say, they sold me on it more than I was anticipating. I was very hesitant when the news first broke last week that, is this really the right move? Is 2311 not, they just won this past weekend with Bubba Wallace in the 45 car. This is a team that is still winning races as well. And they're much newer to the Cup Series scene, obviously, than RCR. But from what I heard from them is that they have a lot of potential. They believe in that system, and I trust Kyle Busch's judge of character on who he believes of people around a team who he thinks can win and who can bring him that success. I think Randall Burnett is going to be a really good crew chief for him. He's an up and coming guy. He's fairly young when you look at the crew chief side of things. Has had a lot of success with Reddick the last 3 years. They're breaking that duo up going into next year. That's already been confirmed. I think all of those little details like that, where it seems a little bit more assured, really allowed Kyle Busch to put pen to paper here and drive the 8. I found it super interesting that Austin Dillon was the one that really kind of set up the meeting.
Yeah, bridge the gap.
I never would have thought that those two would have been in that kind of place where they could talk about each other's future like that and be able to make a pitch. Because the way I look at Austin Dillon, I tweeted it out, 2014, I still remember this. I was watching it upstairs, the Talladega fall race. Austin Dillon didn't hit the brakes and Kyle's avoiding a wreck. He smashes into him. 18 cars totaled. He's out of the playoffs in that second round that year. He was the highest seed going into Talladega on points in that 2014 playoffs. So, but that's obviously in the past. These two are going to have to be teammates next season, and potentially Tyler Reddick here too. We'll talk about him in a second, but I do think it was a smart move for Kyle Busch to have a clean break from Toyota and just TRD in general. I really think that is a smart decision for him, because I think it would be a really difficult situation for him to go over to 2311, even if it was for just a 1-year deal. A lot of those people, they're close with him, but it's not his A-list guys. Those are the guys that he wants are over in the big factory team at JGR. It's not necessarily the guys that are at 2311. He's going to have to make work with what he has there. And I think Chevrolet is clearly the best in terms of resources right now. It seems like they're clicking on all cylinders across the board. It's not just Hendrick dominated. The other cars have really stepped up their game this year. When you look at Petty GMS, Trackhouse is a legit threat. RCR is winning races at least. These are some big things that could definitely see as a selling point for Kyle Busch. And, TRD does have, the lowest numbers. We've talked about that so many times on super speedway tracks where they have the lowest in terms of partners. He's going to have a lot of partners with Chevrolet now. And I think it's a really good coup by Chevrolet to try and get a former guy that really started his career, made his name a little bit, to an extent that Joe Gibbs wanted him back in the day, to go back and get him. It's really interesting to see how it's all unfolded here. But he just has to reach his full potential. And I think Chevrolet will give him that opportunity, not as a biased way, but as a legit analytical way of looking at it from an outsider's perspective. I think that Kyle Busch made the right call here. Multi-year is a long commitment, obviously, but he wanted that stability. And I can understand why in a market like this, you'd want that stability. No sponsors have obviously been announced as of yet. They seem like they have some partners on board, but we don't know who they are as of yet. How many of those will be from the existing 8 car? Could it be all of them? Could it be half? Maybe they're trying to try and get some other ones. Who knows? All those details will be finalized in the next coming weeks and months, I'm sure. Maybe even going into the off season, who knows? But I think Kyle Busch is going to be just like Kurt Busch. He's going to make a team that he goes to better. And I think that's what the Busch brothers really do. Kyle Busch will bring a lot of, he brings a lot of prestige to that organization. This is the best driver they've had since Kevin Harvick, arguably since Dale Earnhardt. But let's be honest. Kevin Harvick and him are tied on all-time wins, but Kyle Busch is younger. He's most likely going to pass Kevin Harvick in wins by the time that they're retired.
Also had to drive for RCR for that long.
That's true. So it's, RCR was not fantastic, and that's why Harvick left. And I think one thing that it's just really interesting to see how this unfolds, not necessarily next year if Reddick stays at RCR, but 2024, because Reddick is betting on Toyota and 2311 that team gives him the best future, not RCR. But now Kyle Busch sees it almost the exact opposite way, where he sees RCR as a little bit of a better fit than 2311. Really interesting storyline. We'll see how that
assuming
develops.
That he did pick RCR over 2311. We don't know that for sure.
All reports have indicated those were the 2 front runners. So I'm just going to assume, but fair enough if it wasn't. But from what I've heard from maybe Corey LaJoie on Stacking Pennies, seemed like maybe 2311 gave him a 1-year option. And then, we'll see where that kind of goes from there. Maybe Kurt Busch is health dependent on that, whatever. But then, Kaulig maybe offered him a little bit of a stake in them, but they don't have a direct line to Chevrolet as much as RCR does in that pre-existing relationship. So there's a lot of different variables to that. RCR is going to be a guy that supports Kyle Busch to no end. I'm pretty sure about that. He's a racer. He's a former racer, and he gets what Kyle Busch is trying to build for himself and the legacy for his son, Brexton, who's got a contract already for 10 years down the line. So even though it's $100 bill, but I think that was a pretty cool little aspect there. But all indications from the press conference and Kyle Busch's comments and Richard Childress' comments and Austin Dillon's comments, they're really excited about this. And I think if you're a Kyle Busch fan, you should be too. If you're an RCR fan, you obviously have to be, because this is a guy that has to almost prove it here. This is Kyle Busch. He's had some lackluster years in the past 3 years. Let's not beat around the bush. He has not been fantastic the last 3 years, whether that's bad luck, the crew chief swap really sending it into a spiral at JGR. I think that's ultimately where they lost faith in him. I think when they made that switch, they decided to put it towards more of Christopher Bell, investing in the future. When you lose a partnership like Adam Stevens and Kyle Busch that have won 2 championships, you're doing that to build for the future. You're not doing that for, the sake of doing it. I think that was pretty clear. So lots of different variables, but I'm excited for Kyle Busch. I'm excited for RCR, and I can't wait to see what they build in the next couple of years, starting next season. Going to be very, very interesting to watch.
And all of the comments from Austin Dillon and RCR, the team, Richard Childress himself, Kyle Busch, all the positive comments and excitement is fine and dandy. But for me, it still comes down to the fact that RCR over the past decade haven't been good enough to warrant a driver of the caliber of Kyle Busch. And
I agree.
Kyle Busch
100%.
Can Kyle Busch go there, and can the team provide him of a level of equipment to actually compete for a championship? Or will it be, you mentioned Kurt's been great the past decade, however long, jumping from team to team, excelling wherever he goes, hasn't competed for a championship because he's been either with a second tier team or second tier equipment or a second tier driver with a top team, and has had good moments. He's won races consistently. He's made deep runs in the playoffs, but he's never legitimately challenged for a championship. I fear that that is the path that we're going to see for Kyle Busch over the next handful of years, where he improves the team. They maybe grab a few top 10 finishes in the points, make a round of 8, those kind of things, have some good moments, but can they consistently challenge for race wins week in, week out? Can they put together multi-win seasons? Can they compete for a championship? That's the big question that has yet to be answered, and we won't get an answer to until we see that combination in action next year, and something that we'll have to see year over year, because over the past decade, they haven't been able to put together a top 10 finish, or essentially over the past decade, they haven't been able to put together a top 10 finish in the points. They did it with Ryan Newman in 2014 with the crazy playoffs that he had, but then before that, Kevin Harvick. But since then, they literally have not finished top 10 in points. Can Kyle Busch go to that team, and can he put together a championship level season? This year, I think we're seeing glimpses of that potential with Tyler Reddick. Obviously, Reddick is a young driver who has had really good flashes, but has yet to put together the consistency. Can Kyle Busch bring that consistency as well as the top end speed to kind of bridge that gap and put it forwards? I'm fascinated to see, because for me, if I'm just straight up picking between 2311 and RCR, I'm still picking 2311. And obviously, I don't think that was the straight up option for Kyle Busch. I think we're talking a long-term option versus a short-term deal. Those kind of things. Going from
strictly organization,
going from the top team at your manufacturer to essentially the second team versus going to a new manufacturer and just kind of getting away from that situation, even though he is still kind of going to the second team there at Chevrolet now with RCR. But for 2311, I look at that team and I look, okay, they're already competing for wins at certain tracks. They're on this big upward swing. They're becoming more independent over the next few years. If you can land a long-term contract there, I feel like they're more likely to contend as a team for championships than RCR is. But going to RCR, you get the change in manufacturer, you get the complete new lease of life, going to the new team, all those kind of things. I think that the way that you can look at it as a positive and maybe the right choice for Kyle Busch is that it's the right choice for Kyle Busch to get away from Toyota if he does have to leave JGR. And I think that's ultimately what it comes down to, getting a long-term contract, all those kind of things go in hand with that. And they can try to build something longer term rather than what a 2311 deal looks like it would have been, which is a short term 1 or 2 year thing to kind of bridge a gap or those kind of things. So there's a bunch of questions that are yet to be answered. It's good that they're excited about this. It's good that they're talking the talk, but next year they got to walk the walk. And I'm fascinated to see if they can actually back it up.
Me and you both, because this is a big, this is the two roads. You pick your path for the basically the rest of your career. These next 3 years, I'd assume 3-4 years is a multi-year agreement. I would say it's probably in that realm.
Yeah, it's at least two, but it's probably a 2-year deal plus a 1-year option. Probably.
I would imagine so. Probably around that. If it's not, it's 3 years maybe. Yeah. But for the sake of it, it's multi-year. This is the crucial point in his career. He has to, if he wants to win a championship, it's going to be with RCR in the next 3 years. Probably. And beyond that, who knows if he wants to maybe re-up with RCR, if there's another option. Where is he at in his current situation of his career? How has his results been the past couple of years? Is he still that premier driver that I'm pretty sure everybody still believes that he is? There's no reason really not to. I know you can look at the results, but this is Kyle Busch. He's won over 200 races in NASCAR's top 3 divisions, 2-time champion. You don't just fluke into something like that. He's obviously, a very prestigious driver, and he's in the top 3, top 5 in the sport right now. I think that we can all safely say that. But this is, I think, a lateral move at best from Joe Gibbs to RCR when you look at Chevrolet's upswing right now. And who knows what this next gen car is really going to bring? Are we going to see this level of parity that we've seen this year? who's going to find that breakthrough? Because you're taking a real big bet here on a team that has had a really good inaugural season here for what we've expected them in the past with this next gen car. Can they continue that upward trend and become a legit championship threat? Once again, like you said, championship fours, is he going to be like a Kurt Busch where super consistent, gets a win or two, and stays in that mix? Or is he going to be a legit guy that you're going to be looking at the top three in points, having a lot of stage wins, a lot of playoff points, and up at the front where you think, man, this guy's going to be someone you have to beat going to Phoenix or wherever the championship race is over the next, 4 years, but for Phoenix right now. So there's a lot of different avenues.
Phoenix in 4 years.
I hope so too. I'm excited. I'm cautiously optimistic. And I think there's obviously a little bit of nerves with this as well.
And I think that's the right mix of emotions.
I hope so, because I hope I'm feeling the right things, because leaving Joe Gibbs Racing is something that, talking as a fan here, I've watched basically my entire NASCAR fandom has been with him in that 18 car, except for 1 year. And that's 2007. Every year since, he's been in that 18 car driving M&Ms and to victory lane and interstate batteries and everything, working with, some of the biggest names in the sport with teammates, Carl Edwards, Matt Kenseth, Denny Hamlin, Christopher Bell. The list goes on and on, of Tony Stewart, even for one season. Like, he's had a lot of people around him that have led him to this point where he's mature enough now that he feels like he can lead a team in the right direction. And I trust his ability. So fascinated, obviously. I'm hopeful that he can get a couple of victories next season. If he wins one race next season, he breaks the all-time record for most consecutive seasons with a win, breaking the tie with Richard Petty. I'm sure that's something on his mind. Going for a Daytona 500 championship, does Chevrolet give him that best opportunity? Who knows? I think, and he gets to drive an Indy car for the Indy 500 if he wants to in the contract.
Now
that's pretty exciting. But that would be pretty cool. And I'd be curious to see if you're looking for silver linings.
If you're looking for silver linings, at least you don't have to worry about the pedigree curse anymore.
That's true, man. Every year, that's the one paint scheme.
Unless they're the one sponsor that comes with him, in which case that would be legitimately fun.
Full-time sponsor pedigree, yeah.
Now we're talking.
See ya.
Man, that's good.
Terrible luck in that car, but I'm hopeful that's a good sponsor, but at the end of the day, it's just a paint scheme. It's just a sponsor. I'm rooting for the guy behind the wheel.
Yeah, it's just the thing that you have to look at every week for 4 hours.
If it's a black 8, I think it could look pretty good. Should we move on to Tyler Reddick here, Kyle, and what this does for him? Who knows, really? Because this guy seems to be going and being pulled in two different directions, really. Like, RCR says they're committed to having 3 chartered cars. They have not yet purchased the third charter, from what we all know right now. But he said he talked to Tyler Reddick the morning of the Kyle Busch press conference. So, this is obviously late in the going here that they let a guy know that, maybe does or doesn't deserve a bit of notice in a situation like this, because obviously RCR was really hurt by what Reddick did, but I can't blame Reddick. Going to get your plan set. There's an open ride in the future. See what you want to do. I think it's a bit of an overreaction from Richard Childress and RCR in general, how they've handled this whole situation. So I feel bad for Tyler Reddick, because I think he's super talented and he's a great race car driver, but if he does stay at RCR, because he still is under contract for them with them for 1 more year, how much of a distraction would this be for him? And if not, would 2311 be willing to buy out the number that I'm sure RCR is really sticking to buy him out of his contract for a year early? But then that would all depend on if Kurt Busch comes back, and does 2311 want to buy that third charter now, or do they want to wait a year and maybe save some extra money because they know they have him for 2024? Lots of different layers to this. What are your initial thoughts on where Tyler Reddick will drive in 2023, Kyle? And then what's going to happen where he does drive in 2023?
Yeah, I'm like 98% sure that it'll be at RCR. Just everything that we've heard from Richard Childress, everything that we've heard from Reddick indicates that they'll be keeping the deal together next year. It's just a matter of what capacity it'll be in. I just can't see a scenario where 2311 decides to buy him out early, where Childress agrees to it, and kind of all that kind of weird contract stuff that you got to love.
Yeah.
If Kurt Busch isn't able to return next year, or likes to retire, I think that we'd see somebody like John Hunter Nemechek probably step into that ride as like a 1-year stopgap kind of thing. But for Reddick going into next year, it's weird that he's at the same team, but is getting a new number, new crew chief, all these kind of things.
Yeah.
It's very weird. But I'm excited to see kind of what happens. We're going to see Reddick versus Busch 1v1, essentially. Austin Dillon's there as well, but we'll see them go head to head at the same team. And I'm fascinated to see the end result.
Yeah, I think Kyle Busch versus Tyler Reddick is going to be very fascinating, Kyle. These two are completely different stages of their careers. This is Tyler Reddick, a guy that's a two-time Xfinity Series champion who is really starting to prove himself in the Cup Series level. And with 2 wins this season on road courses where we have seen Chase Elliott dominate in the past couple of years, that says a lot. You know, this guy is talented behind the wheel, hasn't quite been able to put it together on the ovals as of yet. I have a feeling if Homestead comes around here and he's still in that playoff mix, if he can survive Bristol here this weekend and get through the next round, he's going to be in that mix for the victory at Homestead, given his pedigree there. You know, I do agree with you that I think he's going to be at RCR next year. I think it's probably about a 90% chance that he's going to be. I doubt that 2311 sees it, you know, viable and worthy of buying him out of a contract 1 year early when they really have no reason to. If Kurt Busch comes back, they're in no rush. And I think Kurt Busch is coming back next year.
I do too.
I don't think he's going to end his career on a qualifying wreck at Pocono. You know, that's just not the way a defending or a former champion, should go out with the level that Kurt Busch has raced at in his entire career. I mean, it's not like he's no slouch. He won a race this year. He won at Kansas. Like, this is a guy who can still win races and perform.
He's consistently won races. That was one of the main topics we talked about.
Yeah, and he's a value to a team of 2311 right now. I don't know if you necessarily want to go into their 3rd year in the Cup Series with a young duo of Reddick and Bubba Wallace. Yes, I think that obviously that's your future, but I still think 1 more year of Kurt Busch does not hurt any organization, no matter what situation you're in. So I think he's coming back. What does that mean for RCR in 2024? Do they look to sell that charter? Do they look to bring somebody else in? You know, do they try and make that a 3-horse powerhouse if there's another big name that's on the market? Do they look in their Xfinity Series pipeline with maybe if Sheldon Creed takes that next step next season? He's not even probably going to make the playoffs this year. So it would be quite the leap of him going to the Cup Series. But, you know, we have seen guys come into the Cup Series when they have been a little bit of a mediocre Xfinity Series driver, and they give him that shot on Sundays. But not to say that is going to be the case for Sheldon Creed or maybe Austin Hill or whoever they decide to put in that 3rd charter if they're able to get that. And it's just a lot of money going into a 3rd car for 1 year of Tyler Reddick, and then you got to figure out your future plans after that. I'm curious to see what they do. I do want to see Reddick over there because I think 3 cars over there is better than 2 when you have a driver like Tyler Reddick that was, you know, an Xfinity Series guy coming up and you're buying a 3rd charter. Not really a value right now, but, you know, Reddick brings a lot to the table, and he's a guy that has a lot of speed, raw talent, and I think he's got something to prove next year that he's gonna, you know, 2311 are getting a good guy here. So we'll see what happens with Tyler Reddick in 2023. Any more comments you have to add on Reddick?
Yeah, just finally, yeah. I think what RCR ends up doing is they end up leasing the 2nd charter from JR Motorsports. I think that's kind of the workaround for Chevrolet, because obviously JR Motorsports, Chevy team heavily linked with Hendrick Motorsports, all those kind of things. The 2nd charter, they just kind of do whatever with. I think they'll end up leasing that for the 1 year to RCR. I don't think that they'll expand to a full-time 3-car team into the future. I think it'll be a 1 year kind of thing where they take the charter from JR. JR can focus on their 1 car. Chevy helps RCR out for the year, and they kind of go from there after a year and kind of figure out where that other charter ends up going. But I think that's what the kind of the solution to this kind of awkward charter stuff will be for next year.
We'll see if Cushman's charter predictions are right. I mean,
usually isn't. So
you're the charter predictor of the 2 of us. You're the charter predictor. But let's talk about quickly JGR, Kyle. We all know Ty Gibbs is taking that 18 car next year. There's no secret about that. It's just a matter of time when they announce that. But what do you think JGR's future short term looks like, and ultimately long term, and will they regret this decision on losing Kyle Busch like this, or is it, you know, trying to build for the future in your opinion?
Yeah, I think they're at the stage where they kind of have to build for the future. I think it would have been perfectly fine if Kyle Busch returned and Gibbs spent another year in Xfinity and kind of have that process kind of get kicked another year down the can. And we are kind of doing this next year with whatever driver, whether it be Busch, Hamlin, Truex, whatever. But Joe Gibbs Racing for a long time has been an old team. And every year we've kind of gone, look at this Toyota pipeline. Look at this great prospect they have. They've got to figure it out. And it's always been one car. And Matt Kenseth was the guy that unfortunately got the axe way back when. It
was kind of Carl Edwards that almost started it all with Suarez going into 19.
That too. But in terms of that was more driver. That was driver decision. But in terms of the team being kind of veteran led, which they have been for forever, and having the best prospect pipeline in NASCAR and consistently losing guys, whether it was way back with Joey Logano, whether it's more recently where they kind of had to make a decision between Eric Jones and Christopher Bell because their B team, the satellite team, went away and they didn't have another seat for them. And they only had 4 seats and you had 3 championship level guys. And look what Eric Jones is still winning races and stuff like that. So, of course, that's a driver that they would have loved to keep in a Toyota if they still had a second Furniture Row team. If they had a Furniture Row team, if they had 2311 at that time, Eric Jones would still be driving a Toyota. That's just not the situation they found themselves in. So they've consistently lost prospects. Hell, even Noah Gragson was originally a Toyota driver and switched and stuff like that. William Byron at one point was a KBM driver,
Harrison
but that
Burton
was more of a loan deal, stuff like that. Harrison Burton.
They've lost Christian Axis in the Toyota pipeline too.
Well, he's still Toyota driver right now, but we'll see how things go with that. But yeah, they've lost tons of prospects that they've put money in and developed year over year. And once they've gotten to the Cup Series level, they've gone and drove for a different manufacturer. You can argue that it's worked for Joe Gibbs Racing, the team, because they've still won races. They've still contended for championships, all those kind of things. There hasn't really been a prospect other than Joey Logano ages ago that they lost and kind of regretted so far in terms of being that championship level guy. But eventually you got to kind of move on to the next era. And it's unfortunate the way that it happened with your number one guy over your history, having to leave under awkward circumstances. And the guy that takes the seat is the grandson. Like, it's not a great look in terms of that, but
no, it's not.
In terms of going into the future, it's a cheaper driver. It's a driver that has shown immense talent over the last few years, that's shown an ability to punch above his weight class. And he's a driver that has gotten Cup starts recently. And it's like, I mean, why not now? Like, better now and get the experience when basically everybody's on the same playing field in terms of learning a new car than falling behind the 8 ball and trying to learn while everybody else has a couple of years under their belt. So I get it from Joe Gibbs' perspective. They're going to have a different performance, of course, because it's going to be a rookie driver learning the ropes versus a veteran that's been there, done that for forever. So don't expect them to go out and win a championship immediately or anything like that.
No.
But the unfortunate reality for Joe Gibbs is that this is probably the smart business decision. Instead of bringing back the driver that has arguably been your third most successful over the last couple of years, bring in the cheap driver who's going to be your future now and help build him up so that he's better sooner. And that's kind of the unfortunate reality of the situation. We'll see what happens in the coming years with Truex and Hamlin and stuff as they really get into their future, whether they go for free agent drivers, whether they bring up through the pipeline. But for now, I think it's unfortunately the right decision long-term for Joe Gibbs Racing to put Ty Gibbs in that seat now, rather than trying to push it and try to figure out a situation that kind of works for all parties involved.
I don't think we'll know the answer to that question, obviously, for another 3-4 years, really. Like what we can see from Ty Gibbs in the Cup Series level. He's going to be like, what, 23 by then? Like, he's still ridiculously young. So, I mean, his path to the Cup Series has been tremendously fast compared to most drivers' trajectory, but it does obviously help when your grandfather is the owner and the name owner of a massive team in the Cup Series. And the flagship car, we talked about last week, it was available.
From that perspective, it helps in terms of knowing you're going to have a seat, regardless of whether you have sponsorship or not, because they'll figure it out. But he's earned this opportunity. Full stop.
Yeah. I think everybody can draw to, whether that was his first Xfinity Series winner in his first start, or you look at probably beating Kyle Larson straight up head to head at Road America this summer. And as soon as he got the 2311 fill-in job for Kurt Busch, I think that's when it ultimately stopped. That closed the doors on Kyle Busch's return to Joe Gibbs Racing. You wouldn't give a guy like that, who was meant to be John Hunter Nemechek, as the reserve driver.
I was going to say, when it went from being John Hunter Nemechek is getting that drive to Joe Gibbs calling up and being like, hey, actually put Ty in this car, that's when you kind of knew how things were going to play out.
Yeah, and you wouldn't be given that seat. I mean, he's going to have the rest of the season under his belt, and he's going to go into next season with, over 10, about 15 races of Cup Series experience underneath him in a Toyota. That's probably not too far off of what the 18 car is going to drive like next season. So that's all benefiting Ty Gibbs, but I still believe that this is a completely short-sighted move on Joe Gibbs' perspective, not just for his Cup Series team, but also for the future of his Cup Series team. When you look at the prospect pipeline after Chandler Smith, if he stays in the Toyota camp, which apparently he's not really a Toyota driver as much as people maybe thought. He may look elsewhere, because it seems like it's Corey Heim and John Hunter Nemechek. They're the more Toyota drivers from everything that I've seen. I could be wrong on that. We'll see what happens, but this is a guy that has brought you your 2 championships, your most successful driver in history, full stop. He is their most successful driver in history.
No, he literally is. He has the most wins.
I think he's their best driver they've ever had too, when it comes to not just on track performance, but what he's been able to bring to that organization overall. And you can't replace a guy like Kyle Busch, and that's not what Ty Gibbs is meant to be doing next year. He's going to be Ty Gibbs. He's going to go out there and prove his own path and make his own way in the sport as much as he can in the 18 car. But when you look at what Martin Truex Jr.'s contract situation is right now, where he signed a 1-year deal, could be coming back in 2024, could not. He may retire at the end of next year. Then you could have maybe brought Ty Gibbs up next year. If you could have just tried to find some sort of deal with Kyle Busch, I'm sure that he would have wanted to stay there if things got off to a better foot. Things got south after the Oracle deal fell through, and I think it was a downward spiral from there, because he really wanted to. I think from watching the Bristol Dirt press conference when he won after the race, him and Coy Gibbs, of course, that's Ty's dad, was trying to really try and make this team, really trying to sell sponsorship. And it seemed like they were in a positive trajectory. And I think a couple of weeks after that, the Oracle deal fell through. And after that, it seemed like they basically given up on their star driver. And I think I've lost a lot of respect, I think, for Joe Gibbs and Joe Gibbs Racing after how they've handled all this, to be honest. I think that this is your most successful driver, and you just let him walk when it seems. You've had plenty of time to figure out a sponsorship deal. I think it's short-sighted by them, because Kyle Busch has even admitted it was short-sighted by himself to think that he would have that car forever. I think it was short-sighted by Joe Gibbs Racing to not almost have something else on the go in case Oracle fell through or something like that, because clearly it wasn't as secure as what they were thinking, and they were misled, or they just didn't read the room properly. There's something going on there that we will probably never know how deep those discussions got and what prevented that deal from really taking that next step. So if he had that, he'd still be a Joe Gibbs Racing driver. If Mars and M&Ms were still around, Kyle Busch would still be a Joe Gibbs Racing driver next year. There's no doubt about that. But they gave up on a guy just because he couldn't find sponsorship. That is I say that obviously that's a big, problem in this sport when money pays and money talks. But I would think that they would put in a little bit more of an effort, because Toyota definitely wanted to keep him. I don't know if Joe Gibbs and Joe Gibbs Racing had as much faith as what I believe they should have in Kyle Busch. When you have Ty Gibbs that could easily wait another year, they publicly said that they were going to wait another year to bring him up to the Cup Series, maybe replace Martin Truex Jr. as he retires. I think they're in the middle of like almost a Hendrick Motorsports style shift here, where they're going to go young and they're going to build from the ground up. Christopher Bell's still very young, Ty Gibbs, and whoever they're going to pick for that 19 car, whatever number that they decide to choose for that car in the future. Who goes in that car after Martin Truex Jr. leaves? Who knows? But Denny Hamlin survives the entire Kyle Busch cycle. He came there in 2006. He's still there after Kyle Busch leaves, going into 2023. So I'm just more, just disappointed in Joe Gibbs and Joe Gibbs Racing for how they handled it all. And I think the statement that they put out was pretty weak, to be honest. I think, there's a bit of hard feelings there, but It is just a statement at the end of the day. I'm just passionate about this stuff. So I will probably read into it more than most people will, but I was just definitely let down by Joe Gibbs, and especially the last couple of months when it seems like there was no way back for Kyle Busch. And he publicly admitted that to the media. Was he ever informed that the 18 car was no longer an option? He was. And that must have been a really, really interesting conversation and a tough conversation to have with Joe Gibbs and Kyle Busch.
I disagree. I think Joe Gibbs Racing is looking long-term with this choice. I think it's not short-sighted. I think they're looking long-term. I think the short-term option for short-term success would absolutely be to bring Kyle Busch back. And I think that was obviously their goal, to bring Kyle Busch back. But given the circumstances they found themselves in, they opted for the long-term option rather than spending the money short-term to try to have success over the next 1 or 2 years versus getting Ty Gibbs in now and having your future be ready sooner, if that makes sense. What I will say is that in terms of your disrespect from Gibbs, I think that's kind of misplaced. I think that as a team, they've handled it actually pretty professionally. They haven't said anything bad about Kyle Busch, even when he's done some awkward things for them in the media over the course of how this has played out. I think they were really transparent with him with the situation that they found themselves in, where early on in the process, they basically were like, we need to find sponsorship or we're not going to be able to make this happen. And I think they gave him plenty of heads up to find a second opportunity, because as you mentioned, it seemed like it's been a couple of months that you're not going to be returning to the seat. Sorry, it's going to be Gibbs. You're going to have to find something else. And I think instead of what they could have done is try to lead him on, try to find sponsors for a long time, do the whole dance. And then it gets to September, October, and they still don't have a deal. Everybody else has figured it out. And Kyle Busch has to find some awkward fit at some weird time of the off season. Instead, he has basically the whole summer to kind of field offers, feel what's best for him long term, and kind of make that choice from there. So I understand where you're coming from as a fan. Yeah. I understand the emotion, and I think it's perfectly valid to feel that way. I think that Joe Gibbs Racing as a team handled this situation about as good as they could have, given the situation that they found themselves in.
I just find it really hard to believe that you can't sell Kyle Busch to a sponsor.
Well, no, there's a difference between not being able to sell Kyle Busch and not being able to sell Kyle Busch for the amount that makes sense for them to keep him. And that's the difference.
But he was trying to... Okay, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, for RCR, they're bringing in a big name free agent who's going to be their guy for multiple years and is going to replace the current number one driver that they have in a year's time. For Joe Gibbs Racing, he's the number two driver right now, probably to Denny Hamlin, given they're in the playoffs and everything like that, wins and things like that. The success over the last few years, he's arguably the number three behind Truex and Hamlin as well. When you look at wins, when you look
championship
at
four appearances too,
there's no denying all those kind of things. He's the number three. Does it make sense to keep your number three driver for whatever circumstances, trying to give up whatever you are in sponsorship to fill a short-term gap, when instead you can fill that number three seat essentially? I'm not saying that Kyle Busch is actually the number three or normal number three. It's awkward to say for a top team like that when it's so close, but it makes more sense for them, I think, rather than trying to shoehorn a fit for Kyle Busch, to bring in Ty Gibbs now and get that process going. I think that it's going to be a slow going process for Gibbs. I don't think he's going to be great out of the gate. I think it'll be a lot similar to William Byron, maybe not quite as low as it was for Byron out of the gate, but we're talking similar age. We're talking similar success on the way up, and we're talking a similar level of team. So it's awkward situation for everybody involved. But I think that it's basically the way that it probably was going to always go if Joe Gibbs Racing wasn't going to find that one big sponsor, which they almost did in Oracle, and then it fell through. So
yeah. I think they lost a bit of faith in him after 2020 with the Adam Stevens change. And I think that was I know Kyle has said publicly that, Stevens kind of gave up on him and he wanted something different. He didn't feel like the partnership was working, but I'm sure that was something they could have reconciled after one bad season. I know the back half of 2019 was still tough for them too before they won the championship. If that championship isn't in there,
they could have rectified it, I'm sure. But for the crew chief, he's probably looking at how things have gone in the past for Kyle Busch crew chiefs. He's looking at how the relationship has gone. It's gone very good. But if you have an opportunity to try something new with the young driver that's on his way up at a team, it's not necessarily the bad decision to go and try stuff out there. Well, he's
made the right decision at the end of the day now.
And clearly it's been the right decision for him. So,
yeah. So, I mean, it's just hard to fathom that this is like the end of that era. I never would have thought that he would leave that team. I thought he was a Joe Gibbs Joe Gibbs Racing forever. And it is, it is sad. Like it is sad for, I think, every Kyle Busch fan to think that this is the end of it. But also, if you're just a NASCAR fan, you're excited by the possibility of RCR becoming a threat again and having just more of an equal playing field across more teams. If you have more star drivers across more star teams, then you're going to have more of an even playing field if all the equipment is continuously progressing the way it is right now with this next gen car. Nobody's really broke through which it won't. And probably starting next season, we will see a bit of a change, but it's going to be a gradual process when you have a car that is more stock parts than not in a lot of ways, so there's only so much there's not only so much you could do, but at the end of the day, I'm going to be you cannot draw too much, emphasis on Ty Gibbs' first season here. We'll see what he does. Is he a playoff guy that could make it? Maybe. I think that's probably a reasonable expectation, but when you look at how many wins we've had this season, you got to be almost a race winner to make the playoffs, then consistent on points. And will Ty Gibbs win a race next season? You're darn right that Joe Gibbs is going to give him every opportunity and the equipment that he can to make sure that that's even a possibility for his grandson. So, and the flagship 18 car. So, they got a lot to prove over there at JGR, but almost more to prove at RCR with Kyle Busch seeing if that's the right decision he made. So, do you want to quickly touch on KBM here, Kyle, before we end up this segment here with what could this mean for the future for the current guys in John Hunter Nemechek, Chandler Smith, and Corey Heim, who are all technically Toyota drivers? It seems like Chandler Smith is a little bit on the outside. I don't know exactly what's going on there, but there's 2 full-time Truck Series spots open at KBM. They've had that third truck running for the owner's title for as long as I can remember with the 51. They're going over to Chevrolet next season. They have some drivers to fill. There's not many Chevy teams that are competitive down there in the Truck Series right now. Do you have anything that anybody that you're looking at that could potentially fill those spots for next season? Any early guesses, or what do you think is going to even happen with that team going into 2023?
Yeah, I'm really interested to see what happens there, because for as long as we can remember, KBM has been a pipeline team, and Chevy doesn't really have a dedicated prospect pipeline, which is strange when you look at how many Cup Series seats they have, but there's no.
They just put them in the Cup Series right away. They don't even need to put them in
exactly.
lower series.
But no, it's kind of strange in that way that the smallest team in terms of field size is the team that produces the most Cup Series drivers, and it's usually for other teams. But anyways, for KBM, I would imagine that they slide into like a GMS type role, where they have 2, maybe 3 trucks. I would expect 2 next year, and maybe like a third part-time or something like that, where they have 1 veteran driver and maybe 1 prospect or younger driver there. But I think it really depends on what Chevy wants to do long-term with their prospects pipeline, if they want to revamp it, if they want to put extra emphasis behind certain drivers, if they want to poach other drivers from other different pipelines. I think that's a possibility as well. It really depends on what kind of emphasis Chevrolet wants to put behind KBM. If they just kind of want to keep what they're doing, and KBM is kind of their own thing, and they're a GMS kind of adjacent team that are good at times, but not necessarily great and those kind of things, that's very possible. Or they could be essentially KBM Toyota, just with the new logo on the front, and have the same great prospects and have a lot of success and stuff like that if Chevy really wants to put a lot of emphasis behind them. So I'm really interested to see what happens in that regard. There's going to be a huge shakeup in the Truck Series and the whole pipeline as a result, whether it's prospects changing manufacturers, what it means for current Toyota Truck Series drivers and Toyota drivers up the pipeline, what it means for what Truck Series team is going to take on those prospects, what Truck Series team is going to become that new dominant Toyota Truck Series team, and what it means for the Xfinity Series. And if we see more Xfinity Toyota teams to help with that. If Sam Hunt Racing becomes more of an emphasis at the Xfinity Series level, gets more starts, or gets a full-time Toyota prospect, and what it means for Joe Gibbs Racing, the actual Xfinity team, and if they get any of those drivers into next season.
All right. Give me 2 names you're watching out for Kyle Busch Motorsports next season, and then I'll share mine.
The first one I will say, so currently in ARCA, there's 3 Chevy drivers right at the top. You got Nick Sanchez, Daniel Dye, and Roger Carruth. I think of those 3, the most likely to land at a Kyle Busch team might actually be a Roger Carruth or something like that. He's a driver that has a lot of notoriety on Twitter. He's somebody that's done a really good job of building a brand for himself. If Chevy is looking to invest more in their pipeline, I could see him being a driver that they start getting behind and could land a KBM type ride. He's done a few Spire Motorsports stuff in the Truck Series, stuff like that. So I could see that being an option. And the other driver that I could see being an option is Grant Enfinger, being a current Chevy veteran Truck Series guy who's been with GMS this year. I think GMS is going to slowly roll back their Truck Series stuff, just given they don't really have any prospects coming up anymore. They've got some Daniel Dye stuff. Jack Wood's been a real disappointment. Not that there was really much hype there to begin with. And they've got the Cup Series stuff going on now, obviously. Yeah. So I could see something happening where GMS maybe rolls back or completely dissolves the truck program, and Grant Enfinger slides over to what is essentially a new GMS with KBM.
I like Grant Enfinger a lot. I'm going back to a guy that we've had a lot of discussions on this show about. Can you guess who it is?
I don't know. Who are we going to talk about?
Who we had a lot of debate about on this show for no reason.
Oh, I don't know.
Xfinity and Truck Series stuff.
Thad Moffitt, maybe? Or is it a different Moffitt?
Brett Moffitt. That's the guy that I'm looking out for.
That's a good pick. That's a good pick.
As a potential guy that's a veteran, Truck Series veteran, probably somebody you can Chevy. Rely on, immediately goes into a championship threat. You know, like he can probably go out there and win. I think he's a guy that he's out of a ride right now. He doesn't have anything set full time. If he can find a little bit of sponsorship, I'm sure. We'll see what KBM does for sponsors now, if they want to keep any of their current ones. I wonder
if they come over or not.
You know, Mobil 1 has been a huge supporter of theirs. I mean, Mobil 1 is with Stuart Haas with Ford. So I don't know if they really have any necessarily allegiance to a manufacturer. Maybe it's more of a driver. Who knows? But I think Brett Moffitt is someone that's on my radar for a full-time KBM seat, possibly in like the 4 in the 18. I wonder if they're going to keep the 18 truck. Like that's going to be interesting to see if they keep that number. And then,
good point.
Yeah, right.
Good point.
2 other ones: Carson Hocevar.
I think he's a nice guy.
And Derek Kraus.
Yep. I can see that.
I think those are both Chevrolet guys right now. Probably due for an upgrade. I like Hocevar a lot. I think if you give him KBM equipment, that would be really, really good for him. And then if you want, if it's a situation where KBM could almost become a little bit more of a pipeline to maybe Junior Motorsports with the Chevrolet team, I think Carson Hocevar kind of fits that mold that Junior Motorsports could potentially have there in a couple of years if Allgaier retires, or if they have an open seat, if Sam Mayer makes a jump somewhere, if he starts to improve himself in the Xfinity Series. Hasn't quite had the best season this year, considering expectations that we placed on him. But yep. those are 3 guys that
he went toe to toe with Ty Gibbs. So
yeah, so it's just been a disappointing, tough season for him overall for that consistency, and still hasn't won. But those are 3 guys that I'm a veteran, and then you got 2 kind of younger guys that are Chevrolet drivers right now. But we'll see if they look at the ARCA Series. I think all 3 of those guys could possibly be a guy. It's just going to be weird to study the Chevrolet pipeline a little bit more now with emphasis rather than the Toyota one, because I don't know how much ThorSport will become a Truck Series kind of prospect when they've just been guys that are running in the Truck Series full time essentially more. So fascinating stuff there with KBM. We'll talk about kind of Junior Motorsports here in a second with what that happens for Joe Gibbs Racing. Do we want to touch on where this Kyle Busch thing could rank all time in NASCAR?
No, we'll keep moving.
We'll keep moving. All right. We'll save that maybe for another time, but we'll quickly touch on the schedules here. That'll do it for Kyle Busch, by the way. We did a really long segment on it, but it's the biggest move that we've had in a long, long time. And obviously something near and dear to my heart and Kyle's heart too, because he likes to bug me on it. So
let's go with that.
Let's go with that. NASCAR released all 3 National Touring Series schedules this afternoon. Not too many big changes. We already knew most of them. The Cup Series one is basically unchanged from what we knew. Chicago Street Course going in there is the July 4th race. North Wilkesboro as the All-Star race. That's it for the changes. Some couple date swaps week to week. Playoffs haven't changed at all. Texas down to 1 date. Thumbs up in my book. We'll take it. Indy Road Course still remains 2024. Hopefully they go back to the oval. Really hoping that that's the case. Should be for next year, but whatever. Xfinity goes to Sonoma. There will be 8 road courses on the Xfinity Series calendar. Little too much, in my opinion, considering how good those things are sometimes on the ovals and the racing that they provide, but no worries there. And then the trucks head to North Wilkesboro during that All-Star weekend. So a nice 2 series action there. And they go to the Milwaukee Mile again. That's going to be fun to see that in the playoffs as well. So anything that stands out to you, Quab, before we move on, is not really too much to add on there.
Yeah, the Cup Series stuff is whatever. I think there still needs to be more standalone oval dates for the Xfinity Series. It's a little heavy on the standalone date, just going to a different road course kind of thing.
Yeah, they're going to Road America still.
I don't love the choice there to kind of do their standalone stuff as road course dates, but it's whatever. Yeah. But I really like the Truck Series schedule. I love the mix that they have. I love the standalone dates they have. I like the decision to have 1 dirt race instead of 2. And I love the decision to go back to Milwaukee. Great choice there to get another new oval in the mix. Maybe something that we could see happen at Xfinity or whatever into the future. A great sub 1.5 mile track that should hopefully have some good racing on it. IRP remains, love it. That's a really fun first round of the playoffs. And
hate that the playoffs start in August, though. It's so stupid. I hate that about the trucks.
And North Wilkesboro being a points race was a pleasant surprise. Did not expect that for the Craftsman Truck Series as well, getting big 1996 vibes out of that one.
Love it.
Big fan of it. The only disappointment is
Bring back the Busch Series.
Now we're talking. Only disappointment is that we still don't have a Canada race back, whether it's Mosport for the Truck Series, whether it's Gilles Villeneuve. Please, God, please.
If you want road courses, it's just sitting there. Like, really.
Just give me it. Anyway.
Nobody will regret it. I swear to you, NASCAR. I swear.
It'll be the best race of the year. So.
And last but not least, gonna almost shed a tear for this one. Auto Club Speedway is having its final race.
There it is.
Next season before they tear that joint down, which is...
What is the third final race that they're going to have? Whatever.
Don't ruin my moment here. This is a sentimental track. It's a great track.
You've done this speech like 6 times. Like, come on.
And this is it. This is the last one I'll ever do.
No, I think it isn't. You'll do it now. You'll do it in the preview show. You'll do it in the post show. And
we're doing post shows? I'm kidding.
Week after.
I'm kidding. But they're tearing that place down and putting a short track on it, which I'm excited to see how that races, but I don't like it that it's at the expense of Auto Club Speedway. I'm pretty sure everybody can admit to that. I think everybody likes that track. It's a fun one. Wears the tires out. Lots of different grooves. Restarts are great. Going to be definitely missed on the Cup Series calendar. It's one of its more unique tracks as a 2-miler that is better than Michigan. Let's say that. So that will do it for our discussion about the schedules for next year. We'll see what happens with the racing at the new venues. North Wilkesboro is the big one. Thumbs up all around from everybody. We talked about that last week. Let's touch on Brandon Jones, Kyle. He's moving over to the number 9 to replace Noah Gragson for Junior Motorsports next season to partner with Allgaier, Berry, and Mayer for that lineup. Star-studded really continues on for those other 3. We'll see what Mayer can do, as we just recently talked about there. Berry having a solid season, has kind of dipped off as of late. Hasn't been quite up there as much as, we saw him at the beginning of the year. Allgaier, just guy that's always there in the Xfinity Series. I mean, he's just week in and week out. But Brandon Jones, an Xfinity Series veteran of 7 seasons, has been with Joe Gibbs Racing for quite some time now, has gotten a couple of big wins. He beat Kyle Busch at Phoenix, so everybody remembers that one, but he also won at Martinsville earlier this year in that crazy finish that Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer fought at on pit road afterwards, coming to the checkers, and was all kind of crazy. So Brandon Jones going over to the flagship number 9. That's the one that's had the most success. It's the one that's won championships for Junior Motorsports in recent history. So what do you make of this move? Brandon Jones has been a average Xfinity Series driver. top 10 in points, top 8 in points in JGR equipment. Do you think he takes that next step with Junior Motorsports in that number 9?
No. Brandon Jones. He is what he is. He is what he is. He's a guy who will win you a race, maybe 2. He'll have a performance that makes you go, oh, wow, maybe he'll do it. And then he never does. He's a guy who's always going to finish 6th to 10th in points, and he's always going to be that. At least he's just ticking off all the Xfinity Series teams. He got RCR back in the day, Joe Gibbs Racing. Now he's got to do the JRM stint and like Stuart Haas after that, get a colleague stint in there maybe. Look, he is what he is. He's a solid but unremarkable Xfinity Series guy who will bring some stability to that 9 team. He's a good stopgap. There isn't an immediate prospect to take that seat. And we'll kind of see where it goes from here. I'm really interested to see because JRM has always kind of had like a couple good prospects in their team. Now it'll just kind of be Sam Mayer, a couple veterans, and Brandon Jones there. So interested to see what it'll be. But I don't know. Brandon Jones is going for like a decade in the Xfinity Series. Like, we know what he is at this point.
Yeah.
He's an Xfinity Series guy. Like, he had to go down and do ARCA races this year. Like, what are we doing here? Like,
it's true.
Come on.
I think he could, I think he can get like 2-3 wins next year in the 9, because that 9 car has always just been.
He's never had 3 wins in a year, has he?
I know, but I think the 9 car is
record
better
season
than the 19 car at Gibbs. I think I think it's a slight bump. That's all I'll say. But no, Brandon Jones is not the answer for any team. He's just super average, and that's about Brandon Jones. It's more the interesting development of 2 full-time JGR cars open in the Xfinity Series. Do we think it's as easy as the 2 KBM guys that are currently out of contract right now and out of a ride go up there and fill that gap, fill those spots, or do you think that they're going to try and find somebody else to maybe fill one of those?
I don't think it's as simple as that. I don't think Nemechek gets one of the JGR seats. Just given some of the emotion that we saw, given why he went back to KBM, all those kind of things. If Toyota really does believe in him as a driver long-term and want to get him on that pipeline and stuff, then I'd love to see it. Absolutely.
He's proved himself in that car. But you want to race with him.
I just don't see him as being the guy. I think we'll see Sammy Smith in one of those 2 seats full-time next year. And I think we'll probably see him. And I think we'll probably see Chandler Smith in that seat, in the other seat as well. I hope so.
I hope he gets one too. Yeah.
So I think that's probably the path they go down.
You think they lose Corey Heim?
I think Heim either. I don't know what's going to happen with him. I think we could see Hattori.
He hasn't done the full season there yet. Like, he's been the filler for most of the 51 ride this year. But.
I think we could see Hattori maybe become the KBM type team that takes in prospects, because right now they're kind of like a weird mid team where they've got Ankrum there and Purdy and stuff. So I could see them maybe getting Heim and maybe a Jesse Love and stuff like that, and maybe really revamping that team. But going to be an interesting silly season for the lower divisions for sure.
It's fantasy time, Kyle.
Wow, don't sound so sad about it.
How can I not be? Come on. I mean, I've got the TGF curse, man. It's back.
Is it the curse? Is it? I mean, it is for you. For me, or I guess for the show overall, it's like a 9th overall like blessing or something. But
it's
for you,
it's voodoo. It's voodoo.
There's some weird stuff going on.
I don't quite understand how this always happens. I'm struggling to even come up with a funny answer. Like, I really
need to take a Rick Ware car 9th overall to really test how strong this curse is.
Go for it. I mean, if it works. I mean, I'm just gonna. I don't know. I won't even show up next week for the fantasy segment. You can do it on your own.
I mean, that guarantees me a win at least. So,
well, let's just, since we're talking about it, what happened last week, Kyle? Because that was so much fun.
Well, last week I had a really good week, and you had a very mediocre week. I will give you credit. Christopher Bell was an awesome swing for you there in the 3rd round. The unfortunate part is that my 9th overall pick won the race again, which is hilarious. I picked up 203 points.
It's so funny. It's so funny.
It really is.
No, it really is. I don't even know how you're doing it.
I picked up 203 points. Larson 33, Hamlin 40, Elliott 37, Truex 40, and Bubba Wallace leading the way with the win, racking up 53 points. You had a couple good performances, but just too many early issues. You had 142 points. Kyle Busch 15, Chastain 34, Bell with the big 53, but then Harvick with just the one with his early wreck, and Byron was a pretty good swing there with 39 points. And that also means that I beat the field. Field picking up 159 points. Alex Bowman, Ryan Blaney being a couple good options, but other than that, we did pretty well.
So yeah, we did great. Yeah, thanks. Glad to be here. Way to be here. Just here for support. Man, Bristol. Let's get into it.
Yeah,
this is going to be an insane weekend. I just have I have a weird feeling, man, and I think everybody's got this weird feeling.
Is what you got.
I got that Bristol feeling, and it's a tight cutoff race going into this. But we've got our draft 5 picks each, and we'll kind of talk about the point situation as we go here, depending on where they're at with our picks. But I'll leave it to you here, good sir. You get the choice once again. Are you taking that first overall pick for basically the 9th overall is your first overall pick?
Yeah,
now?
Exactly.
And do you want to skip to the 9th overall pick first off?
I might, honestly. I don't know.
Do you want to take first and then I get the 2-3, or what are you thinking?
I have to, right? Like for the 9th overall thing,
I wouldn't be upset at all if you kept that trend going. So feel free.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing.
I was trying to do reverse psychology there. I was hoping you'd feel bad for me, but you never do.
No, I never do. I'm cold-hearted. You don't got to worry about that. You were talking about trends. I'm diving right into this.
Go for it.
You were talking about trends. Me having the first overall pick, the 9th overall pick winning. Well, you know what? You're
gonna pick.
I like those trends, so I'm taking Kyle Larson with the first overall pick.
Once, man. Just once.
No, I never want you to get the chance to have Kyle Larson.
I love that because he's only had 2 wins this year. Like, I mean, we're talking like he's Kyle Larson from last year.
I don't care. It is Kyle Larson. It is Bristol. It's always been a great track for him. He finally broke through and had that full performance with a little bit of help from some other people last year. But it's Kyle Larson and it's Bristol. I like the combo. He's my first overall pick.
Yep. Can't say I didn't anticipate that. So nobody knows what the heck is going to happen this weekend. I don't even think the drivers know.
We haven't had this race.
We have not. This is one of the last new ones on the calendar this year. We got the Roval coming up, and then Homestead. Those are the final 2 remaining that we do not know what this next gen car looks like yet. So lots of unknowns. Is it going to be last or average finishes that are going to be coming into play? Is it not? Well, you're sure as heck I'm going to be taking my swing on the guy that has his plans finally settled for 2023 with my first overall pick. Kyle Busch. He's the king of this place. Average finish of 6.4 over the last 5 races. That's including a flat tire last year in the fall. And he won the spring race here on dirt, of course, but he is still very, very good around here. He needs it for his playoff hopes. He's going in there -2 below the cutoff line. I think he gets out. I'm very confident in that. He's got a
gets out as in he's eliminated.
wave off of him. I could tell by his body language. He's a new man. He's totally refreshed. No worries now. He got his stuff signed for next year. Kyle Busch is my first overall pick. And this is why I'm stalling for my second overall pick because
you have no clue where you're going from here.
No idea where I'm going with the second overall pick for me.
Oh man.
So I'm going to go with Chase Elliott for my second.
Yep. Good pick.
Very close to winning here in the spring last year. Has had a bit of a slow start to his playoffs. I think he finally gets that ship righted here this weekend. It's just been a good track for him. He always seems to be near the front. Just limit the mistakes for the 9 car, I think, is the key this weekend. They'll be fine if they have no mistakes. You know, they're not safe by any means going in here. They are in a decent spot standing wise, but you can lose a lot of points very quickly at a track like Bristol. So Chase Elliott is going to round out my first 2 selections for myself.
Yeah, that's a really good 2-3. Not a lot I can really say about that.
I have no idea if they're going to be good or not, though. They could be 15th and 16th. I mean, like, nobody knows.
I mean, yeah, that's the whole point of predictions. Yeah, nobody knows. That's the good part about Okay, the 4-5. Are we feeling a bit risky?
Not yet. You got to wait till the 9th pick.
Well, no, that's for the big swing. Don't worry about that.
All right. Well, yeah, go for it then.
Okay. The 4th pick, I'll go a bit more conservative. I will take Ryan Blaney here with the 4th pick. He's always been a guy
making his first appearance in the draft.
Yes, that's right.
He's a first-time draftee, Mr.
There
Blaney.
we go. Hey, how about that? But yeah, Blaney's always been really good at Bristol and always had terrible luck. And last year, he finally got a good result out of it. So we'll see if the luck continues or if he leads 200 laps and then gets wrecked by a lap car, because he's basically done that before. So we'll
sounds familiar.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see how it goes.
Probably had him in my fantasy lineup that weekend.
Probably did. But you know what? I'm taking the Blaney swing. I like it. The 5th pick, though, we're swinging.
Okay. I like the sound of this because I have a guy in mind that I want.
We're taking Kevin Harvick 5th overall.
I like it. Get him off my team. I've had him the last 2 weeks. I'm done.
Dash 35 to the cut line. He either needs a lot of help or a win. And he almost won the race last year.
He did.
And he won the race before that. So
been good on short tracks this year.
Kevin Harvick, good upswing in terms of speed over the last few weeks. They've consistently been good on the shorter tracks. What do we got this weekend? Short track, baby, where he's been really good. So he needs to win. It might bite me in the rear end because he might go out there, try to do too much and wreck, and give me a 1-point performance like somebody else had last week. But you know what? I'm taking the swing on Mr. Harvick.
It's a good bet. I wouldn't say it's necessarily a swing.
Like, it's a swing because I think he's either like a top 3 finish or he wrecks.
Interesting. Okay. All righty. Yeah, I don't have to worry about taking the 4 car this weekend. He's probably going to win now.
Yeah, exactly.
So
to knock out Kyle Busch, who wrecks out early. Or something.
Well, if he wrecks out early, he's done. So it doesn't matter. For my 3rd pick in the TGF draft going into Bristol, I'll be taking Denny Hamlin.
I was scared about leaving him on the board.
That's the guy I wanted. I was very happy that he fell. Yeah. Been really good on short tracks this year, specifically Richmond. He's just been solid on these kind of slower short tracks. I mean, Bristol's fast, but like it's, just shorter in length essentially. And yeah, I think Hamlin's going to be one to beat, man. He's just always finds a way to be up there at the front for these Bristol races, I feel like. And yeah, he's going to be one to watch for sure. 4th pick. Man, there's some good picks. Damn, there's some good drivers here. I'm going to take Joey Logano as my 4th pick. Yeah. He's got nothing to lose. He's in a really good point spot. He's basically locked into the next round. He can go for broke this weekend and not have really anything to worry about. So Logano is going to be one to watch, I think. And I think Penske's ready to kind of break out here a little bit. Like they've just been so mediocre, I feel like, for a while now, where they just have a lot of short run speed and they have no long run speed. And that's just been the Penske way for, I feel like, almost a decade. But at the end of the day, I think Logano, this is a track where he's just always excelled. So taking the 22.
I like it.
Thanks.
I was really hoping for some reason you would pass on Hamlin, but here we are.
Why would I pass on Hamlin?
I don't know. Alrighty.
Here we
Crunch
go.
Time. I have to be strategic about who I make the 9th pick, though. Essentially,
yeah.
It's basically
I'm worried
my
because
race
I really
pick.
do feel like there's a 9th overall pick here again that could be good. There's a guy I'm eyeing now.
Okay. What I will do is I will make my my statistical kind of swing with the 8th pick because I don't think he's going to win, and I'll make somebody else the 9th pick. Worked for me a couple weeks ago. I'll take Eric Jones again as my 8th overall pick. Low key, 3 straight top 10 finishes at Bristol, including...
Yeah, I'm looking at the averages. Of course he has.
Including 2 top 5s. And before that, he led laps in the 2 races that he ended up finishing outside the top 20. low-key, really good track for him. If they, again, keep it clean, be there at the end, I could see them absolutely being up there in top 5 contention. So I'll take Eric Jones. I don't think he's going to win the race again. That would be quite something to
I'm
win.
interested to see who your winner pick is right here, because we don't even need to talk about that after this.
That's interesting, because I also don't know who my winner pick is. I don't know who I'm picking right now. Where do I want to go for this?
I don't know where I want to go for 10th, so this is going to be fun.
Where do I want to go for this one?
Talk us through it, Kyle.
There are, so there's 2 drivers that I'm looking at here.
Okay.
I'm looking at William Byron as one of them, a guy who had a really strong performance last year to make his way through the round, I'm pretty sure. He had to point his way through. Correct. And then the year before, he was in a great spot and wrecked out.
And then he got no replay. We have no idea what happened.
We don't know what happened.
Still don't know
about that. Damn, that was annoying. So I'm thinking about him, and I'm thinking about Ross Chastain. Those are the 2 I'm thinking about, because Chastain, he's got speed. It's an aggressive track. He was good at Bristol in the Xfinity series. Probably should have won the race if he could have made the damn pass, and he couldn't. On Chase Briscoe, I think it was way back when, which is 3 years ago, whatever it was.
Man, you're testing me now. I don't know. I know. That's bad.
But it's between those 2 for me. And I think I'm going to play it safe and take William Byron. I think he's more likely to be there at the finish. I think Chastain could be somebody that goes up there, leads laps, and then wrecks out. Just given everything, whether it's people that don't like him, aggressiveness, whatever. So I will round out my lineup with William Byron.
I think that's a really smart decision, because I don't like Ross Chastain at all this weekend.
Okay.
But I will not be picking him.
So Chastain's going to win, right?
If we don't pick him, I'm fine.
Okay, fair enough.
If he's off the board, he can win. I think all power to him. One car can win. But he has lost his edge the past 8 weeks, last 10 weeks. He has not been able to he's not been up there leading laps like he was in the first half of the season. So right. I've dipped down off the Ross Chastain bandwagon that I think everybody hopped on after he won his second race at Talladega earlier. But he still has not won on an oval this year. That is, not a super speedway. So still kind of waiting to see that from yeah. My 5th pick, 10th overall. This is a toughie. Because I think all of the good guys are almost off the board now. But I'm going to go to Old Faithful, Christopher Bell.
God damn it. I was hoping you weren't going to do that. Oh, no. I love that.
Me. I love Adam Stevens. He knows how to set up a car around Bristol. He was very fast here last fall before he had a flat tire in the closing laps, just like Kyle Busch did. Derailed the top 5 finish. I'm taking the 20 car. I'm going JGR really heavy in this week. I couldn't see anybody else that's better than him. Truex is not a Bristol guy. And I was looking at Reddick, but I like Christopher Bell more right now. He's got nothing to lose. He's already clinched the next round. That's taking the 20 car, that actually
swayed me away. The fact that he's got that big points gap that he might just be like, let these guys do silly stuff and I'll stay out of it. That also might give him a really good points day. I don't know. We'll see.
I'm going for points here, baby. I know
that's all that matters. And that's all that should matter at the end of the day, but that's a whole different thing. And you knew that was coming. But I think for the first time out of this fantasy reboot, I prefer your lineup to mine at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that 2-3 duo really kind of puts it up there, because I think there's a clear kind of top 3 guys at this track.
I don't think there's any favorite going into this weekend, really.
No.
Nobody knows. And it's whoever unloads well, but it's also who can keep up with the racetrack, because I think it's going to be a very much top dominated groove with the way that these cars have been set up. And we've seen that a 1.5 miles top lane has just been dominant, but it's still provided really good racing. I think it's going to happen here. That grip strip in the bottom with the PJ1 is going to be crucial to making passes. If you can get your car to work on the bottom this weekend, be huge for your overall success, but that is obviously easier said than done. So let's go over our lineups one more time here, Kyle.
Do it.
And then we'll submit our winner picks. You go first because you chose first.
All righty.
And I'm still remembering who I picked.
First overall, your boy, Mr. First Overall, Kyle Larson. Of course, he's going to be first overall every single time.
An average draft pick really of funny. One.
Yeah, so literally first overall every time to my team, and I love it. Fourth overall, Ryan Blaney. Fifth overall, Kevin Harvick. Eighth overall, can I call him my guy now? Eric Jones after that win. Can I call him my guy?
That's he's Eric Jones is kind of my guy, but
he's our guy. How about that? He's our guy.
Yes. I
Official
like that a lot.
TGF guy, Eric Jones, and William Byron rounding it up.
Banner it. Get it on the bumper sticker. Yeah, that should be our YouTube
if we're
banner.
Starting a Cup Series team, he's our guy.
Big TGF guy.
Yeah.
Big. Yeah. For
huge
myself,
TGF guy. Sorry.
Huge. My picks, Rowdy. God, I need a big weekend from him.
Sorry, I was waiting for one of those moments where it's just the pause, the look into nothingness, and just
I need a big weekend from him. Oh, I cannot have it end at Bristol. That would be the most crushing way for him to end his championship bid. But
wow, I didn't think about that. About that.
You think I haven't thought about that? I've been obsessed about everything. Yeah, Chase Elliott, like that pick. Then Denny Hamlin went third to me. I like that pick too. Joey Logano, fourth pick. I'm okay on that pick. I don't know about Logano, but I'm hopeful.
That's why you took him seventh overall.
Yeah. And then finally, I almost like him more.
I like him more. I think I like him more.
Yeah. Christopher Bell.
Good pick.
Love that guy. So those are the picks.
Good stuff.
It's tough not to. He's a lovable guy. That'll do it for our picks for the TGF draft for Bristol this week. Action-packed show, news-filled show. Lots of fun to cover it all. Really enjoyed it, and I made it through without getting emotional. How about that?
Hey, I still got like 2 minutes.
What was the odds on
I got still like 2 minutes.
We're good. I just start
playing like a tribute video.
Yeah, put it over top.
Your eyes.
Yeah, if you put that on, I'm done. It's curtains for me.
I know.
So who's your winner pick for Bristol, and who do you think's going out? Let's just talk about that quickly before we end the show. Who's going out this weekend? Man. Who's the four?
Kevin Harvick, Chase Briscoe, Austin Cindric, and Daniel Suarez.
Whoa, you think Suarez drops back, eh? He's +6 to the cutoff line currently. You think Austin Dillon gets out, eh? Wow.
I think he has a clean day and just has a decent finish, and some other people getting some problems.
Mr. 15th, yeah. I can't be talking like that. He's Kyle's
teammate. You got to save that trademark for Kyle Busch over the next 5 years.
You're getting me riled up. Kevin Harvick, I think, goes out. It's unfortunate because he had that late season resurgence, and that, we all picked him to go far in the playoffs. And I was looking forward to having the 4-car go long after the season that the last season that he had last year. We didn't win anything. So, I don't want him to win because that would decrease Kyle Busch's odds at advancing. But, for the sake of it, I hope he's up at the front, making it interesting.
As part of my fantasy team, I hope he wins.
I don't. Chase Briscoe goes out. He's not going to fall one corner short this time. He's going to not be in contention for the win this weekend. And then he's going to win this weekend now. Austin Dillon, I think, does go out. I'm not crazy about him at Bristol when you compare some of the other guys. I think you're going to almost have an established top 12 guys, and I don't think Dillon fits that mold, and you're going to get a lot of stage points from those 12 guys. If you get them, you're in a pretty good spot. And I think Austin Cindric falls out as well. I think Kyle Busch does advance. I think Tyler Reddick stays in it. I like Suarez. I haven't picked out in this to advance out of this round as well. I still trust that gut feeling from Suarez.
I like him this weekend too. I just think he could get caught up in something.
Could absolutely. Anybody could get caught up in anything at Bristol opening lap. If the PJ1 isn't, heated up, cold tires and everything, could be a wreck fest on the opening lap.
Really good driver and have to start in the back.
Yeah, I'm nervous about that. Pass pre-race inspection, please.
Before we get to the winner picks, though,
yes.
We buried the lead. The biggest news in motorsports over the past week is that Lightning McQueen is a dinosaur fan. Did you see this clip?
I watched the whole show. Did you watch the whole show?
I haven't watched the show at all yet. You watched the whole thing already?
No.
Imagine.
Yeah, of course I watched the show. What are you talking about? Do you not see him right here?
I know. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Anyways,
I watched the show.
That like made my year. And being a paleo guy, that's awesome.
Good for you, Kyle.
Let's go.
Paleo strong.
We are dinosaur friendly program, so
we're not extinct.
That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
No. Okay, now your winner pick. You get to go first, or no? You get to pick. Do you want to go first or not?
No, you get to pick because you're the loser.
Why do you say it like that?
What? Okay. What other ways there to say?
I'm gonna go first this weekend. Let's change it up.
Okay.
I'm going to take Denny Hamlin to win this weekend.
I'm taking William Byron because he's the 9th overall pick.
Yeah. If this works again, I swear to God.
If it works again, I'm putting money on it or something. Like
you have to. I don't even think about doing it now.
Like that's legitimately insane. The 9th
but you didn't take a non-playoff
pick.
guy with 9th overall though. That's been the kind of the trick of the trade the last 2 weeks.
But no, no. You got to watch for the trend. Started non-playoff driver, non-playoff owner. Then it went owner car, non-playoff driver. This week it's owner playoff, owner driver, or owner playoff, driver playoff. It's a trend.
Put a graphic on screen so people understand what the heck you just said. So
just have me photoshopped in like It's Always Sunny with the crazy. Yeah, you know what I'm talking.
You need the numbers going right towards your head. That thing where everybody's like, "What the heck did he just say?" Any final thoughts before we wrap up this super entertaining episode? I've had a lot of fun. It's gonna be a wild weekend. I don't know if it's gonna be wilder than the show though.
We were doing so good and we just went so far off the rails. It's gone. It's probably my fault for bringing up the Lightning McQueen dinosaur stuff. So my apologies.
Well, I mean, you preface it as like the biggest thing of the week.
It is the biggest thing of the week.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me it's not? Lightning McQueen is a dinosaur guy? Come on. I don't know.
Kyle and
really fun show. I'm glad we're back. This is a lot of fun and we're off the rails. So it's probably good that we're finishing up.
Let's call it. Yeah. But thank you so much for your support. As I preface at the start of the episode, really, really appreciate it. Thank you for sticking around for this episode. Hope you enjoyed.
Well, we'll see if they stick around for this episode.
Yeah, if you did, the props to you. You know, like that is unbelievable. But we really enjoyed ourselves today. If you probably couldn't tell, but we had a lot of fun and lots of great storylines. Glad we got through it. And I'm just talking about myself there. And you know, this is. I'm just gonna give myself a pat on the back for that. Like that's go me. So great show. Glad we know where Kyle Busch is going. The schedule's out for next year. Lots of fun stuff on deck for the NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Series, and Truck Series going into next year as the silly season almost basically kicks off now that Kyle Busch has announced his stuff. We'll see what happens as the dominoes fall over the next couple of weeks and months to come. But for this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman, signing off for now. Thank you so much for all your support. Links in the bio for all of our stuff for our social channels. Make sure to follow that and enjoy the weekend at Bristol. Should be a fun one, everybody.
Good stuff. Good show. Good show.